welcome to the Lion Go Show After Show with Boards of Bits, DPR, who was raptured, Stephen Hawking, and Atheist Coffee.
Hello.
Hello, then.
So, Stephen
Hello.
Hawking, why don't you tell us what happened? So you were late.
Why I was late?
Yeah.
Because I was working and it went over and I'm getting extra pay, so I decided to continue.
Well,
sorry, I am very poor and I need money. That's my excuse.
You hear that, everybody? Give
me your money.
Yeah,
give me all your money.
Him your money.
Jesus loves you. That's all you need.
Well, thank you.
Course.
No, or you could survive on mana for like 40 years, I think it was, right?
What?
You know, that whole mana thing. So, DPR, what were you saying before that you wanted to talk about?
So, can you give me minutes?
Okay.
Iron chariots.
Oh, yeah.
God doesn't like iron.
He also really hates figs. They got it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fags, it's figs.
Yeah, it's figs.
Jesus.
That's right.
Jesus
It's
hates
a typo.
figs. Oh, man, he fucking hates figs. He'll burn a tree if he sees a fig tree. He just hates those fucking figs.
I thought Jesus hates fats.
Fats? No, it's actually
This
figs.
is how the crusade started.
Yeah.
This is genuinely...
Wait, what? What?
This is how the crusade started. Is it figs or fats?
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
There we go.
I thought you said facts. I couldn't understand what you said. You said facts, right?
Yes, Jesus hates the fax machine. That evil bastard. There's no meat. Well.
So, DPR, you're back?
Sounds like he's still doing stuff.
Oh.
So what should we talk about?
Has someone got a 1930s Remington typewriter there?
Where the hell did that come up?
There's loud typing noises.
Steve.
For once, that's not me.
It's not me.
I'm not typing.
Not me. I have a touch screen.
This is interesting, isn't it?
Do you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, that was me.
Yes. That.
So what's the subject of the after show then, Strife? Do you have one?
Let's see here. We could talk about Jason Burns, since everyone knows of him practically. Well, I think.
No.
Not me.
Well, Board, do you want to give some background?
Well, Jason? Well, not really. No, I don't think... There's no point talking about somebody who's not here, really. I don't think it's fair on them.
No.
Okay, what about, I don't know,
Let's talk about Jesus.
Yeah, actually, it's a great topic.
Okay, let's talk about Jesus.
My point is the deep immorality of some of his teachings. They're held up a lot of good stuff. I mean, the Golden Rule, that kind of thing. But his main contribution to fundamentalism was in the Sermon on the Mount when he equated thoughts with actions. You know, if you think a thought, it's equivalent of committing the act.
If you imagine you have sex, if you want to, if you look at that woman and you like the look at her because she's quite fit, you are an adulterer and you should be put to death.
You are
now,
an
ignoring
adulterer.
the practical implications of how the fuck are you going to legislate for people thinking?
Well, you don't. It's a mechanism that fundamentalism uses to keep people guilty, keep them coming back. I mean, it makes you guilty of every sin.
Literally, if you think something wrong, then you're doing something wrong. And
Guilty
when
of it.
you're reading something which says, don't think of this, what's the first thing you think of?
Yes, exactly.
It's like when you tell a child, don't jump on that geezer, what are they going to do? They're going to jump and set themselves on fire.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to be a married man in that kind of fundamentalism because, I mean, the Bible says if you look on a woman to lust, you're an adulterer. You've committed adultery. And so even though I've never cheated on my wife, it felt like an adulterer for so many years because, you know, biology, you can't escape
Scumbag.
biology. Yeah, you see and you feel, and I mean, you make a conscious choice. You know, I'm not going down that path. I'm not going to do that action. But it doesn't matter in fundamentalism. You're guilty. You're an adulterer. And man, that's why there's so much sexual perversion, because in amongst fundamentalism, because they're already guilty. There's no line to cross anymore.
You mean
I
like
mean,
This is why
finish.
this is why.
So how do you
this is
meet
why
your wife as a fundamentalist? How do you meet your wife? Do you do it in a dark room or
through
something?
roads,
No, in church.
Yeah, but then you looked on her.
just
What do you,
church.
when you looked at your wife? So when you being a fundamentalist, your wife knows that you met her,
Oh,
you married her because you didn't
cool.
fancy
I'd
her.
like to see those ankles.
No, but
Because
it's
if you
weird. You're right. It's weird because as you're courting, as you're leading up to marriage and everything. I mean, you have these feelings of lust, and you think, man, I mean, it's technically wrong, but then when we get married, it won't be wrong. So it's wrong now. It won't be wrong then. But what does it mean? And so you're always conflicted by these thoughts because thoughts are equivalent to their
yeah,
actions.
I mean, because you gotta have some standard, right? I mean, like, I just don't see it. How exactly does a fundamentalist find love? It's kind of
No,
obscure.
same as everybody else. It's just you've got all kinds of rules and ridiculous, Bible passages to fuck everything up.
But I mean, but then what is love then if you're a fundamentalist? Is it
It's exactly the same as
Rigor
everybody
and
else's.
no, but
It
just trying to like me envisioning the position. I'm like, I can't look at her funny. I can't think she's hot. I can't do any of that stuff.
Well,
So
ironically, what it helped was for us to get to know each other a lot better outside of a sexual relationship, and that was actually quite positive. I mean, there was a lot of negative in fundamentalism, but there wasn't. It wasn't like we were building our relationship. It's we go on a first date, we have sex, that kind of thing. No, it wasn't like that. We weren't building our relationship on sexuality. We were building it on friendship, and actually, I quite liked that. Um, but I didn't
And some
like
suppressed sexuality, I would suspect.
somewhat.
Suppressed sexuality, I would
Oh, not
suspect.
some.
like like
A
like 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 like
colossal amount.
I'm guessing right when you got married, you rocked the bed so much it broke.
Well, a gentleman never tells,
Too much
but
detail.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
too much
But
detail.
isn't it true that there's a sect of Jews who actually have sex through a
No, that's how they were supposed to
I
have
heard
hole
that.
in the
That's how
sheet?
real
That is some.
fundamentalist Jews do it.
I think you've been watching the wrong type of videos there.
No, that's how the fundamentalist Jews have sex. That they cannot see the woman when they're having sex. I think it was.
Oh, this is the most absurd. I don't know whether you know this. I mean, if fundamentalist Christians are absurd, these Jewish sects who aren't allowed to work or do any work on the Sabbath. And have you heard of some of the electrical appliances they have?
Yeah, to get around the Sabbath laws.
Well, you can't even do that. You're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to use electricity. It all depends on how you interpret it.
Yeah,
This is half the problem with it. It's just a very. It's not dangerous. It's just retarded. Let's put it like that. It's just
ridiculous. Yeah.
nonsensical.
God damn it.
There are some. It's, I mean, the point is about going back a bit to the adulterer. If you stare at a woman, it is
Just
the
so
most totalitarian, oppressive religion that you could possibly have.
Yeah.
just
I
so
mean,
know,
you say, I mean, even the religious laws before it were at least about
Hello?
acting with other people and following your faith.
Right.
Even then, excessively authoritarian and oppressive. But even so, it's not a case of a literal big brother telling you what to do. And this is why the claims of Christian paleo-conservatives, neoliberal conservatives, libertarians are the most paradoxical, nonsensical ideas you could
And
possibly
it's not.
contain.
Yeah, it's not true morality. They don't. They purport to put forward true morality, like this huge, big, our morality. No, it's a fake, phony morality based on phony guilt. That thoughts are going to their actions, and we have to love everyone, even and pretend to love people we hate. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's paradoxical and ridiculous.
just to know, does everyone in the chat hear me better now? Because I think I fixed my volume. I hate.
Yeah, you sound fine.
I mean, I don't know, no, but it's people in the.
Oh, in the chat. Okay.
Do I sound okay, trolling with logic?
Can I just say Jason Burns then?
Yeah, I know that. Crap. Let me try this. Um, tell me if you hear me now. Is it better or worse?
I
No, you can hear me because you're on Skype, but I'm saying people who
Oh.
are watching. Same? Ah, crap. Fine, I'll adjust the stupid volume up one notch. It sucks that this stupid thing, like,
You suck.
like, I have to put this thing on boost every time. It sucks. Okay, I'm boost 2. Okay, now it should be better, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty loud. Yeah.
Yeah, better now.
Boost 12. Destroy the
Too
ears of
loud?
all.
Oh, god damn it. Okay, I'll just do this. Is it better now or worse? Oh, fuck you, Nick. Fuck you.
Life. The world is full of idiots, but there's a lot more people trolling.
Well, I mean, so go on with what you're saying, sorry.
Oh no, you completely sabotaged the conversation. So
Very
that
effectively.
particular, yeah.
Just go fuck off and ask Jason Bauds if he wants to join.
Okay, I'll ask him that.
Slave.
No, wait, Bored to Bits, do you have anything against, do you have anything that Jason Burns has talked to about you, so we can bring him in?
No, I'd not really. It's a long time since I communicated with him. But I'll be happy to talk with him. Whatever he
Give it a
wants to
crack.
say.
Well, I'm gonna write this. Want to join an academic debate with Bored to Bits.
I wouldn't use the
Yeah,
phrase
anyway,
want.
if you want a bit of fun, just Google Sabbath phones. Because Jews aren't allowed to use any electrical devices, what they have is and they actually have Bluetooth for the Israeli Defense Army as well, where you can't dial, because you're making electrical connections. So what they do is they have pegs where the numbers are, and then you pull out the peg or put the peg in, I can't remember which, and the processor behind is checking where the pegs are all the time. So you're not doing the work, the processor is, and so that's okay to use on the Sabbath.
Yeah, like I said before, the farther you get into fundamentalism, the weirder it gets, and the more cognitive dissonance you have to hold in your mind.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. You become ridiculous. The most stupid, idiotic. Oh, it's just fundamentalism destroys rationality. It's a suicide of the mind.
I remember, so it was very funny when, what's his name? The English guy who does, he's got an odd name. And he went and spent some time with the Westboro, the Phelpses.
Oh, you're talking about Louis Theroux?
Louis Theroux, did you see that?
Oh, that's great, yeah.
But the thing he missed, and he missed the trick, and I think he was chickened out, because I would have done it, as his last visit there was on a Sunday, and they were having a barbecue, and they were cleaning up the lawn. They were literally picking up sticks on a Sunday. If he did, I mean, that was an opening that he just should have jumped to. But he never
and
did.
they probably were eating pork too.
Well, they didn't say they were fundamentalist Jews. They were fundamentalist Christians.
No, they're fundamentalist. Probably what I want to believe in order to oppress
to
people who I
this.
don't like.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
That's
It's
literally
prejudice.
It's
prejudice
hiding,
given voice
it's
by religion.
hiding your personal bigotry
Yes.
behind Scripture.
It's
That's what it is.
insulting to moderate Christians to even classify them in the same group.
Yeah.
I mean, there's wrong, and then there's just fucked up.
Although I was part of a fundamentalism that wouldn't, march in the streets with pickets, wouldn't say homosexuals openly say that they deserve death, although some of us did. I mean, I was told by a few that, Westboro, it's not what they say that's wrong. It's just kind of how they go about it and their attitude.
That's the point. That is the point, is Westboro doing nothing wrong. Because if you pick up the Bible and say that you believe a man lived inside a fish for 3 days, and you will swear and you claim to be prepared to die to defend that belief, then you've just believed crazy. And if you believe crazy, I'm afraid you excuse anybody else in the world from believing their own crazy. That's the trouble.
I mean, then if you believe a man lived in a whale, what keeps you saying, oh, well, Pinocchio was in there too, I guess, and stuff? Like, I don't know, just the story.
Well, it's because you ascribe God's supernatural intervention to the authorship of the Bible.
What does that have to do with you living inside a whale?
With Jonah and the whale.
Yeah, I know, but what does that have to do with God, fucking with the
Because
whale?
if it's in the Bible, God put it there, and it's true.
Yeah, but there is no whales that could swallow a person.
Yeah.
What about a whale shark?
That's a shark.
Days.
Well, yeah, it's a shark.
Actually,
The clue's in the name.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh,
Actually, there is an interpretation of that within fundamentalism that it says that he went down to hell. It implies that while in the whale he
Went
died and
down to
God brought him
hell.
back.
And
God
that's
brought him
always
back.
the funny one, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
if you go down to hell, I mean, I've been to Australia, and it's not that bad, but you go down to hell, and Jesus goes up to where? I mean, he's going to run out of oxygen
Yeah.
fairly soon.
Well, I mean, it really, they literally believe, great swath of Christianity believes that in the center of the earth, that's where hell is. And when you die, if you're not saved by Jesus, then, I don't know, gravity or something just pulls you down there and you just stay there. And if you are saved, God scoops you up and takes you to heaven. That
Well, you
hell
know
is
that
down there.
there is a story, and I think it came out, well, you may know better than me, but I remember reading this story, and I must dig it out somewhere, that when Jesus died, and the sword went in and the blood dripped out, that blood soaked into the ground, and below there was Adam was buried, Adam and Eve, and
Well,
that
yeah.
his blood cleansed that sin from Adam and Eve.
Well, there is a continuity in the story because the Mount of Gethsemane was said to have been the mount that Abraham sacrificed Isaac, the mount that the threshing floor of David, and that there's this continuity in the scriptures that that it goes all the way back, and this is kind of not too widely understood within Christian theology, but it is actually there. It's part of it.
Well, it's a problem, isn't it? Because a lot of the Christian theology that's outside the Bible actually comes from the is it the Midrash and things, the Jewish non-canonical books,
Yeah.
where there's there is a lot more explanation of all the things that are going on in the Old Testament, and that fed into Christianity, but Christianity never codified the book, so you've got this absurd double sort of speak that goes on.
And there are many books, extra canonical books, extra biblical books that the Bible actually references itself. It references works in literature, other books, Book of the Kings, and other books of the apostles and things that were not included canonically. So there is this.
That. We can point out that the Bible, so we can point out each specific book when we look at them, and we understand now as we do the other ancient Greek philosophies, we can point out how they've influenced the text. And we can see very clearly Neoplatonic influence, which is late Plato's philosophy, influencing, for example, Mark and other texts. We have very reasonably demonstrated that if the Q's document, the hypothetical fifth gospel equivalent exists, that's been heavily influenced for Epicurean and Stoic thought.
The belief in hell, it was a Greek thing, and then the different cultures had these. I mean, even the words are directly taken. Hades, Tartarus. I mean, these words for hell were directly taken, lifted out of like Greek mythology.
It's not just the words; it's the entire concept. I mean, you can take a word and it's fine. It's the entire story's lifted.
And you know what the funny thing is? That explains why the Christians never actually thought of heaven. Because it seems like they cannot think of their own material. The Greeks thought of what Hades looks like, but they never thought of what heaven looks like, I guess.
Yeah.
But you've got to understand there were no Christians. The whole point was Jesus was a Jew. He was a Jew, a Jewish rabbi who'd come, and he was the equivalent today of a fundamentalist Jew. He was saying, look, you've distorted the books of Moses, you've distorted the law, and that's why our nation's in the state it is. If you ever want the nation to be great, you've got to adhere to the rules, the law of God, the Ten Commandments. He wasn't a Christian, he was a Jew. And then Paul comes along, and the most absurd thing is that Paul then has this argument with Peter. Peter, who's Jesus' rock, Peter, who was his right-hand man, who walked around with him during his 2, 3, 4 years of mission, whatever it was. Then Peter, who comes along later, about 30 years later, and says, I disagree with you, and wins.
Paul,
Peter should have said to Paul, fuck off, I'm the number one disciple.
In a sense,
I know what Jesus wants.
There were controversies between the factions. There were many different factions in the early church, as there are now. I mean, and it's just the ones that wrote these books that were included canonically were the ones that eventually won the day 300 years later.
Boards and
More than
bits.
that,
What
I
do you?
mean, the
What?
biggest
Oh,
the biggest group, the biggest group that fought them, they were massive. They were literally half and half divided splits. There were groups like the Cathars who believed that God and Jesus were completely independent. I mean, Jesus pointing out how Jesus specifically constantly contradicted what God says, and all the passages saying, "You have been taught this, but now I'm telling you this,"
Yeah.
repeatedly. And this was a massive group. And why did they fail? They failed because the other groups, the Catholics, Roman Catholics, just kept
Yeah.
killing them. There
Yeah.
was no philosophical win. In fact,
Yeah.
the people who debated the Cathars almost always won, but they just kept killing them, kept destroying that theological tradition, and that is the root of why this group interpretation is successful. Not
Yeah,
because
why
of
Christianity
anything
is what
being
it is
right, not
today.
because of any justification, but purely cold killing.
okay. You guys. We could schedule a debate or something, an academic debate. So I have Jason Burns on the show next week. Who would we vote for? Would be the one who would go against him?
An academic debate about what?
I don't know. That's the thing. We'll pick
Well,
up.
I'd be
I mean,
happy
I
to,
mean,
but I would.
it would have
He
to be on
says
something that
he
we
says
knew about.
he says give him a week in advance. So I'm saying okay. So I'll say okay. Well, next week.
Well,
I
hell,
would
the
be
stuff
happy
that
to.
I know, I don't need any time to prepare. I can debate whatever.
Yeah, I know,
I mean,
but he won't. He
why
won't.
does the guy need a week?
No, this is what he said. This is what he says. He says, you need to do it right. Contact me right away. Book me a week or more before. Give me ground rules. Let me talk to the person before, etc. I know you are young, but you need to do things right if you want me to debate. Try and
Right.
He
fix up the
sounds
debate with me and
pretentious.
some
Right.
atheist. What?
Let me moderate it because I have a lot of experience in real life in debating, and so I can set up the rules, etc., and formulate a reasonable topic. Then let someone else take part against him. I think that would be the best way of doing it.
Okay.
Anyone just to try and just try and engage anyone in the chat, any chatters. If you have any ideas for topics we could do, I mean, one that's already came out, Akadja. I imagine that means the Earth.
What?
Akadja.
The hell's that?
It's age, but with a Q in. But if you have any ideas for topics, please save them.
Okay. Well, I'm asking him right now if he'll do it. Let's see. Okay. Wait. You have him on your Skype, don't you?
Who are you talking
Yeah,
to?
We're talking about getting Jason Burns next week to debate someone.
Oh, Jason only needs a week's notice.
He says a week or more, so I'm going to say, what about next week? I wrote, so, and he's typing back.
let me just find.
Is
Make
he
sure
a
you type
theist?
it
Like,
up.
is he a
Academic.
Christian or something?
Wow,
Where's your
Atheist
name?
Coffee, that's the thing, I'm amazed, you never heard
He's
of him.
just a wanker.
But is he a Christian wanker?
He's somebody whose his mental state varies greatly between being a poodle rolling on his back with his legs in the air to being a Jack Russell biting at your ankles.
Oh, sounds like
Okay,
somebody I would not want to
so,
talk
so
to.
here's the question you ask. Wait, let me, what the fuck? I'm away at the weekend. What the fuck does that mean? What is the format, so stuff like that? That's what he wants to know.
See, the reason I ask is because the Bible
Let me
says
try
to
and set
always
that
be
up.
ready.
Or,
To always be
or,
ready to
or,
give an answer.
I could invite him right now, and we just say that he's not on the show, but that's mean, I know.
No,
Yeah, it
people
is
don't
me.
want to do that.
Just bring him into the call, for goodness sake.
Well, then he's on the camera.
Yeah? I can always close my eyes.
Just as long as you agree to be fair to him and give him a fair time.
No, the thing is, though, he won't come on unless it's an academic debate. He's made that
Well,
clear.
What does he
Sounds
mean
like
about
an
academic
asshole.
debate?
He means that you give him a week or two notice. You
Bring him into the call. It'll be so much easier.
you do it then, since you have him. I'm not gonna do it.
Not rocket science.
I know it's not rocket science, but it's not my fault. It's so just to note, it's not my fault he's coming in.
Oh, I haven't got him on this contact list.
Okay,
I've only got him
Steven,
on the other one.
do you have him?
Just add him, for goodness sake. Where's your balls?
Balls, I'm not going to add someone
Quote,
who
isn't
doesn't
it
want to
Timothy?
be on.
What is it? Second Timothy, whatever it is. He has to answer.
What's that?
Always be
No, but you're
prepared.
taking it out of context, aren't you?
It says always be prepared, not always take a
That's
week to be prepared.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Always be ready to give an answer to any man who asks you of the hope that
Yeah.
lieth within you. I was,
That's
you know,
it.
if you believe it, stand by it. Just right now, bam. It just
Come
sounds
on,
like
get
some
in the ball.
pretentious.
Let's have a chat with
But
Jason.
don't you have him on your Skype?
I don't.
Oh, fine.
The-
Just to
the
know,
thing with-
just so you're advised, it's DPR's fault.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
Yep,
Blame me.
It's
My
DPR's fault. That's
Okay,
shoulder
3,
distorted.
2, 1, click there.
Yeah, what you talked about earlier about the schisms. Have you, Steve particularly I was talking to, read Newton's work that only came to
Oh,
light in the
man.
1920s?
The text is covered by John Maynard Keynes. Unfortunately, yeah, just showing off a bit there. No, unfortunately, haven't. It's not really my area,
Oh
unfortunately.
no, I'd say you can get it on. You can get it on. You can get it free on archive.org or whatever. But it's interesting because where he takes apart like the Comma Johanneum and, but also he attacks Athanasius, who is one of the apostolic fathers, and accuses him basically of a heresy against the Arians. And it would seem that Newton's bias was towards Arianism rather than anything else. From his and bear in mind, Newton spoke and read Latin, Greek, and French, German, as well as English, and so I think because he was a very religious man, he
What
had
the
something like,
fuck?
even in his day, he had something like 30 odd Bibles
I
of his own, which he used to go through checking and cross-checking translations. And he came out against the Trinity, of course, but only in these secret writings. He never, because to do it publicly back then would have been, academic suicide, if nothing else.
Steve, what's he talking about?
I have no idea.
He's like, I saw your show. Screw the Old Testament.
Who was that?
That's what Jason Burns said to Steve.
I saw your show, mate. It was a screw the Old Testament day. No
Yeah.
punctuation.
Oh, he must have not had his tablets today.
Yeah, I'm trying to respond extremely. What's the word?
Nonchalant?
Well, we were
Yeah,
talking about specifics.
formally.
We weren't just talking screw the Old Testament. We were talking about specifics in the Old Testament. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be
How about this? How
I'd
about
be
the
happy
top?
saying
How
it's
about
quite
how about the
generally.
topic be about the Old Testament if that makes him feel better?
Ask
This
him
helps support
what
the
topic would he
this
like
helps
to
support
discuss
the
instead of coming
morality.
out with academic debate. Ask Jason if he came on, would he like to offer up 2 or 3 topics that he would be willing to discuss?
Something like this house supports the morality found in the Bible is probably a good shout.
I think a better one would be the resurrection of Jesus. That's his favourite topic.
It is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's always going to be fun. The historicity of Jesus Christ is... I mean, I've done it before. The problem is if you come across someone that you've never heard of before, it's very difficult to refute them. On top of that, it's very bad format. It's a very hard format to do history or science as a debate. Because
Or how
of
about
course,
as a topic
again,
the growth of Christianity between Jesus' purported death and the end of the 2nd century?
Sorry, what?
See how many academic references you can get for that.
What the reason for its growth?
Well, any detail on its growth.
Was
goes
there
back-
a Christianity until the 20th century?
No, to the 2nd century. Only to the 2nd century
Only...
AD.
Oh, I thought you said end of the second millennia. All right. I'll give it a crack. He's writing something out. I don't understand because he seems to be spending ages writing each sentence, or each bit, but they last about 10 words and they're not even like...
They're not coherent, are they?
Oh.
Don't ask too much from Jason. Just be patient with him. He's
Yeah.
laid under certain difficulties.
He may have been out broadcasting today.
Well, he's made a video actually. Yes, and he got 4 calls. Remember, he's got 4
Can I just
calls.
say, DPI, you have a fan in the Vaughan chat.
He does. Where?
Cooling membranes DPR is on fire. Nickenstein's response, You are smoking.
Oh man, I
Yeah,
wish
you
I had a
smoke.
fan.
You are sewing.
Yeah, DPR's got a fan.
You are right in there.
Someone make the
Oh.
DPR Jones fan club.
Well, it's because he
Yeah.
sat there with a fag. That's why.
That's the other thing. I always
So
thought
it's
this.
appealing to the gay audience and it's appealing to the people who hate fags. Right?
Oh, Badum Tish. Badum Tish, I'm told to add.
Cigarette, should I say? I forget the American audience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's
No,
mostly
just say
Europe.
fag. It annoys. If someone just comes in and an American and just say he wants to, and just not saying it, that it just makes such a fun conversation, doesn't it? Really.
I
Boy,
know.
mate, I'm a fag.
DPR's having a fag right now. What's wrong with that?
There's nothing
There
wrong
we
with
go.
having a fag.
Oh,
If
that's
you know
annoying. That's
if
not
you're-
even a word.
And
Sorry.
yet the Americans are quite happy to wander around patting each other on the fanny, which is...
I have had 4 cray times of you atheists ringing me up now in the last 24 hours. Who do you think I am, Don King? Question mark. You send me all the details, who, what, and when, and why. Then I will put it to friends, and if it seems right, we'll contact you. But stop being dodos rushing things. I will do things in my time.
Oh, no,
Space. Full
I've
stop.
got
I
the
think
guy.
he's thinking of the
Your
Magic
show
Sandwich
was
Show.
disgusting. I wish I had have come on as DPR Joe's, as talking out of his butt.
Oh,
See
he's a
you
chicken.
around. Do things right, and I might play ball. Get rid of the militant nut job atheism.
I think he's confusing himself with somebody who's important.
Who's
Yes!
Who's Don King?
I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, he's the boxer
It's a
guy,
boxing.
isn't he?
Yeah.
My reply to him would be, Jason, you are just a person. If you want to come on, come on. You're not anything special.
He's not like we want Richard Dawkins on the show or some fucking Stephen Hawking or something.
It's like we're getting. It's like DPR trying to get William Lane Craig on his show.
Jason, this is a simple request. I've asked others as well. We're looking to get. What
We
should
were
I
looking
call
for
him?
numpties and
People?
your name came up.
We're looking for numpties and your name came up to get on the show.
For an just mention the
for
word academic
a
debate next week.
critical debate. I'm not going to use the word academic lots because it comes across twatish.
Yeah,
Well, I say
why-
comes across
why does
twatish.
he
It points
deserve-
out how stupid it is to use the phrase academic over and over. Jason, this is an academic quest. Well, I have asked other academics as well. We are academically looking to get academic people on the academic show for an academic debate academic. I'm not sure. How much? What else? What can I put?
P.S. You're a douche.
P.S. You're a douche. Is there any other requirements or provisos to the rules of a debate that I have posted?
This is better than a comedy.
If not, I can discuss. Oh fuck! How can I put this across? Simply, I can discuss how much of a twat you are, and
In your absence.
thus progress to the finer points of why you're a twat.
That's a good one, Rizzler. 10% off at Greg's.
I am in the south. We don't have Greg's. I'm a happy person.
It's a sandwich shop.
No, I know because we have another. What's it called? Warren's. We have Warren's. Warren's beat me. It was it was like a year where Greg's was everywhere, and then it's like Warren just told them, "No, fuck off. This is our territory," and they all just left, apart from one tiny shop, just being surrounded by Warren's, and it is quite funny.
They got boxed in. Did you send it? Steve?
Sorry,
Gone quiet.
have I what? I'm sorry. I'm thinking about how to write the rest of it because it's.
How long does it take to type forget it?
Or you're a
Well,
nut.
I'm trying to put it in an articulate way. I could just put fuck off, but I like to be articulate because it makes me feel smart and not a twat. So I'll be a twat. In regards. Give me a second. I'll be back in a minute.
I figured Jason's one of the guests in the room. Oh, can you etch a sketch of how you communicate with him? I'll do that right
Hmm.
now. I don't know. Hmm. Well, tomorrow's topic for the British audience is going to be the Bible. So we could talk about that a little bit of it now, since we'll have a different panel tomorrow, if you want.
Couldn't we
There's
do The
nothing.
House at Pooh Corner? That's a better book.
Who?
The House at Pooh Corner. That's a good book.
What's that?
Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, Winnie the Pooh.
It's got some good morals in it.
Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh. Oh man, I forget how the song goes. It's been so long. How'd I forget it?
Would be. So when does our show start again? 7
Which one?
British time,
Oh yeah, next week.
and that's
Yes.
2 p.m. EST, isn't it?
Yes. 5 hour difference.
On the Saturday on a Skype call to be broadcasted on Vaughan.tv and uploaded on
And he will
media.
receive a copy.
You are free. I'll assume that he can edit the video as he wishes.
Yeah, I guess.
Um, conditional upon credit to conditional upon credit to the source in the form of giving a link
tell
to.
Jason you will hold Charlie ransom until he grows a set.
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good one.
So with the how, when, and why clearly stated, I shall move on to the who and what. Who is it that was going to debate him?
Well, DPR or Bored to Bits, which one?
Well, I've kind of already. He's bitched so much about you. I don't think it's a good idea, DPR.
Okay, let Bored go.
But on what
Well,
topic?
yeah, what?
What topics do you have as
Just
suggestions?
say
I mean,
on a
just say
topic
some.
of, just say on a topic of your choosing, Tim.
The user board. Do you have any suggestions? That'd be useful.
Oh, I don't want. I'd rather listen in. I really don't want to debate somebody who's mentally unstable. It's just not. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
positive thing to be doing.
I don't like it either. Like when that Stephen Christ guy is on every once in a while, shit.
You know, it's like the guy you see standing in the street holding the Bible and screaming. Do you really want to debate that person?
Well, no, standing in the corner shouting at an imaginary
depends.
person.
It depends. The point is, obviously, the point of a debate is not to educate the other person because that is only one person. Although you should be trying to. The major audience is the audience. It's the people listening in, the third parties, and that's who you should be projecting your case at.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there are more people and they're more likely to listen to you. I mean, the opposition will specifically affirm and promote their beliefs because they are the opposition. But the audience who aren't being attacked are a lot more open and a lot more receptive, and thus are a lot more likely to take your arguments seriously and consider them, and thus change their opinion.
Okay, we just need to know what he wants to come on and talk about so that we can keep him on topic.
We have suggested topics such as the accreditation of the success of early Christianity to divine intervention, or the historicity of the resurrection, or issues regarding the ethics of the Bible or Old Testament, or either Testament.
Well, any other topics? Well, anyone have a suggestion for a topic we could talk about now? Anyone in the audience? Since we have a big crowd, actually.
Yeah. Where are we on the list? We're quite high up. And that's really surprising, bearing in mind how little we've been talking about.
No, you should have seen last week, though. We were number 7.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I was like, shit, we could have made it to number 1. I mean, that was because I think we had DPR and Aaron Ron. If we had Thunderfoot on, like, we're possibly going to
Get
have
all of them.
Oh, yeah, just to know, we could... Well, DPR, do you think Thunderfoot will be available tomorrow? Because he said he'd possibly. Don't know.
You'll have to ask him.
Is he on?
I don't know.
You should get Eric Hovind or Ray Comfort on.
Oh,
If
God.
we get real celebrities, as in, no, that's the wrong way of putting it. I think it's quite derogatory. So I just feel like something
Well,
that.
who's a...
If we can get real life, as in known for real life actions, celebrities.
Like, Bill
The
Nye the
last
Science Guy?
character. Like, sorry?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Barack
I'm
Obama.
I'm sorry. That's more of an American phenomenon. I'm sorry.
No, I mean you can get a lot of people from around a couple dozen Atheist community, and you can get speakers from literally anywhere who come down and speak. If you get, say, a constant stream of 2 dozen, 3 dozen people, if you just message, for example, or email formally the American Humanist Association or the British Humanist Association, people will appear.
What's
It's really
Johnny...
quite surprising.
Who's Johnny Ball?
I could get Stephen Hawking on. I mean, no one would know it wasn't him.
You mean Microsoft Sam?
Yeah.
Actually, wait. Let me see if I can find that program. Microsoft Sam. No.
Hello, I am Stephen Hawking.
I'm already here.
Yeah.
I do not sound like that. If I was
He's
Stephen Hawking,
pretentious.
every
Hawking's
couple of
pretentious,
weeks...
isn't he? Because he's from Cambridge and he speaks with that
Wait.
stupid American
Whoa.
accent.
Whoa.
You know, he sits
I
in
was him,
Isaac Newton's chair.
Yeah.
If I
That's
was him, I
kinda
would
cool.
repeatedly change the accent of my voice just to be funny.
I'd have to use a woman's voice because it just wind everybody up.
No, Sean Connery, firstly. Sean Connery for a bit.
Yes.
Morgan Freeman. Every time I was on a TV show, just Morgan
I'll tell you
Freeman.
what would be really funny if he used Jason Birds' voice.
For what?
Stephen Hawking saying, "Won't discuss my greatest discovery unless you have proper academic debate."
Sorry, where's he from?
What? Jason? He's
Jason
from
No,
Manchester.
that's...
He's trouble at Mill.
Is he a Man City supporter? So I will take the piss out of him for it.
I don't think he supports football, does he?
No, because Wigan beat Man City, and it was the most embarrassing... If you don't know anything about British football, or proper football...
You mean soccer?
You
No, it's
Brits and your
Do
soccer.
you mean soccer? Yeah.
You know, the game you play with the ball and your feet.
That's
Which is
soccer.
football.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
but we call it... What does soccer
Well,
mean,
you call
actually?
it incorrectly.
I mean, I get the name football because you use
It's
your
what
foot.
retards call football. That's what it means.
Yeah, but then you call we have to call football something, yet we use our...
We call it American football. We have the American and the proviso to point out
Yeah,
that it's stupid.
because Americans play football without their feet for the most part.
Yeah.
It's more like
American
throw
is like
ball.
a
It's throw
prefix
ball.
meaning wrong.
It's throw
Like
kickball.
American logic or American politics.
Yeah.
Or American people.
All fucked up, you mean?
Armored
Yeah,
ham egg. Armored ham egg. That's
Yeah.
a good one. Armored ham
What
egg.
was I on about?
What?
Oh yeah. Wigan and Manchester City, that is the equivalent of David versus Goliath, except Wigan have less of a chance than David, and Wigan beat Man City. I mean, that is the equivalent. That's more miraculous than Jesus resurrected. That's more miraculous than an entire city's dead becoming ghosts and wandering the cities. I would put money on that happening before Wigan beating Manchester City, and yet it has now occurred. And I'm now poor because I put a bet on it and I'm upset. But it's still quite funny. Oh well. I love football.
I couldn't tell.
You love soccer. And yet the thing is, soccer to me is like the most fun sport to play, but it's the most boring sport to watch, in my opinion.
Strifer, are you the only American in this call?
Oh yeah.
Check it.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're Canadian.
But
You're
your
like,
games are so long. It's like when you play rounders. It takes a whole day. I mean, when we used to
Yeah.
play rounders, it was over in half an hour.
Ignore cricket for a moment. Cricket is
Cricket's
the
only any good if you're drinking while you're playing it.
Yeah, cricket doesn't make any sense. I don't see how anybody understands it.
it's like stickball. Pretty much it is, right?
Or
Just
you use a
doesn't-
cricket bat.
Doesn't make any sense.
To be fair, it's a sport that makes sense, but it's difficult to explain. It's a great
Yeah.
sport. Except for tests. No one likes the tests.
It's a great sport to play, and a terrible one to watch.
Which
Oh,
is
it's not a great
sticks.
sport
What
to
what
play.
what fi- what st-
It's the
cricket?
against good. Cricket is a horrible sport to play. But if you're batting, you spend most of the match on the bench, just waiting for everyone to go and knock out.
I mean, I'm just curious though.
When you're-
Why do soccer players make less than football players? I mean, in Britain, is football? Well, your
How
football
much
Football
how
players
much do
probably
football
make more
players
money.
make?
millions.
Well, they
Yeah, we
make
make
millions
millions.
here.
Probably
Well,
tens of millions. How much
Yeah.
does your football players get paid
Well,
a week?
let's see. Top paid football player. Let's see.
In wages, not sponsorship deals, etc.
Oh,
'cause we don't know those.
okay. Top. Okay, when I wrote football, it came up with soccer. I'm like, what the fuck?
The
Football.
atheist debate.
Here it is. Football players. Football players. Okay. The world's no. I don't want soccer. I don't want soccer. I want.
Okay, name a successful American football player.
Well, here's the top 10. Here's the top 10 highest paid soccer players. Number one is how much is 36 million euros?
30 million pounds, probably $50 million.
Yeah, David
Yeah,
David
something 45.
Beckham is the highest paid person.
David Beckham,
Beckham.
not Beckham. What is wrong with? Ah,
That's an Americanization right there.
Yep. Splitting up words. That's what we Americans do. Here it is. Top paid football players for 2012. Let's see. Number one is
some faggot.
Oh,
Sorry, I don't
God.
like American football players. Rugby's a better sport than football. American football. You're making me saying it now. I'm pissed off. We compare the armour wear by an American footballer to a rugby player.
Here it is. The football star. Let's see here. His name is. What is his name?
You have a.
He got 50 million though.
What, dollars? The
Yeah,
highest paid American footballer.
I think so.
Yeah, but it's to do with the audience, isn't it? They're paid by the TV,
Yeah.
so you have a much bigger audience.
I mean, players don't get paid by the television companies in the UK, do they? It's all done through
What the
the
hell?
clubs.
What just happened?
I don't know what's happened.
I don't know.
There we go. Lionel Messi, most paid footballer, is earning $67 million a year before, post-tax, before increased subsidies.
Whoa! That's holy shit. That was weird. I just saw God. I think I just saw like the warping of space and time when I looked at my screen. Pretty much like the screen, like it was like a screen within a screen within a screen for all eternity. It was like shit.
Jason Burns has been typing for the last 5 minutes.
He's sending you a paragraph.
I've sent him 2.
And
Well, I don't know if he's read it yet. I'm not that credible of his reading.
Is he not
No,
watching
that's
the
harsh,
after
but
show
it's
here?
quite funny.
I don't know, because I mean he says that you're screwing with the something with the Old Testament. I just forgot.
Yeah, because I mean, if he's watching it, then he knows we're all talking shit about him.
Yeah, he's one of the guests, isn't he?
I don't know how he can stand it and not come on to defend himself.
Yeah, get some bollocks.
Especially when he was invited
Get
to
some
come on.
bollocks. Are you trying to use the English phrase bollocks?
Yeah, DPR does it better than me. I don't.
That's because that's not the context of the word bollocks.
You say grow a pair.
Yeah.
Or you just say bollocks.
Oh, I love this.
Hey,
What
bollocks
playing
is like,
cricket
oh,
looks like to
bollocks.
Americans. I
What?
like
Yes.
What's it look like?
That every time I watch it, something to do with cricket, this is exactly what it looks like to me.
I've played croquet.
These
Wow.
Korean meatballs really are the dog's bollocks. Think about it.
No, thank you.
Playing chess.
He's writing his paper.
I'm trying to watch that video. It's not loading.
Video.
How long is it?
What video?
Playing cricket looks like two Americans. Cricket.
It's 5
Oh, dear.
minutes. It's 5 minutes long.
I love how it starts off with a football referee.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the
Just-
goal of cricket? I mean,
What the hell?
Dancing around after hula hoops.
what is?
Yeah.
What is
The
the goal of
Eternites.
cricket? I mean, would you say baseball is a simpler sport than cricket?
It's a
But
simple
Baseball's
sport.
rounders. We play it at primary school over here. Baseball.
Yeah.
We call it rounders.
We move up to the better sports.
But we don't use gloves.
Oh, that must suck.
Yes, that's pretty
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, like you try to catch the
How
ball,
do
you
you-
fucking
How
hurt
do
your
you
hand.
catch a line drive? Man.
That must hurt
You
like
just-
a...
You move your hands. You don't catch it like you just put your hand out when you catch a ball. Same as in cricket.
Yeah.
You gauge where the ball's going and you take this power off the ball by bringing your hand. Otherwise, you break a finger.
So pretty much you let the ball bounce.
No, you
Oh,
catch
no.
the ball, but you move the ball. You move your hand with the ball.
Yeah, you have two different types of catches. You either make a triangle with your hand so you can catch it above you, and it falls into that and it takes away most of the power. Or when you put it down, you just use two hands and make like a water cupping gesture, and it goes into that, and you move it. And both times you drive it into your body when you get the ball, takes off all the pressure, and you've caught it. You don't need a retardedly 10-foot large glove in order to catch a piece of rubber thrown at you.
No, you see, I agree with you on the football definition, but you're going to lose on this baseball thing, really.
No, it's like
I mean,
playing brotherly love, brotherly love.
You know, in the
So
early days of
tense.
baseball, I think you had to
Oh.
throw the ball at the guy running the bases and hit him.
Can I interject in the conversation here?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason Burns has made a new comment.
Oh,
I can
God.
tell you now that I have a lot of things on this week. Steve or Strive can call me in a week's time and we can talk then. We can have a chat if you really want me to debate on your show. But it will take at least 2 weeks to set up as I have a lot to do and you need to do the few things. So take care now. Hope you have a good show this coming week. We have a live chat about some things, comma. But I do have a lot.
There's not enough.
He butchers the English language. He butchers
And then he
it.
wants an academic debate.
If I do, yeah, you do it academic. If I do debate, it would be on the resurrection of Christ,
Oh.
as that is my main work at the MO. Dot.
There's
No,
only
on
one
the,
source.
That'll be quick then.
The Educational Foundation channel, they've got a sort of like counter that counts the days since Sylvia Brown agreed to be tested by the James Randi Educational Foundation. I think
Oh, yeah.
it's up to several thousand now. It was years ago that she agreed to be tested and subsequently not done so. I think it'd be interesting to have a website or include on websites a counter, since Jason said he would publish his academic work, which originally was going to be a couple of days, but then he set it on the 10th of April. So we're now, 30 days after he said it was going to be published, and we're still waiting time.
What is it? Is it like the most beautiful book I've ever read? I mean, like it's...
Apparently,
more
apparently it deals with the resurrection of Christ and maybe other issues as
Tripe
well.
on that.
I heard he'd broken his black crayon and he hadn't got a new one yet.
Well, the last time he responded to a message of mine, he said that he still had 2 chapters left to write, so it would definitely be coming soon. But apparently, in a conversation with a Runra last night, he admitted that he would not be submitting this paper, which incidentally has turned from a paper into a book, into possibly a PhD thesis. He wouldn't be submitting it for peer review. He would just be posting it on his blog. He expects to be taken seriously. I'm sorry, Jason, you're a joke.
I mean, I think it's going to be so good, it'll make me find Christ. I honestly think that.
You know why he's having trouble writing it? Yeah, I know why he's having trouble writing it. Because he's constipated. And he's going to write it in shit on his walls.
Well, that's
that has conjured up so many.
That's a horrible image, man.
I can't believe it. Don't say that sort of thing again. Come on, Jason. Come and join us in the call and tell us why you weren't told what's in your paper. This is the odd thing, isn't it? Right? He is a messenger of God. He goes out onto the streets.
Oh yeah.
Manchester, preaching the word of God to convert people. I bet my bottom dollar he's not converted one person in his entire street preaching career. But he is at the same time this wonderful, incredible illuminary, this intellectual giant, and yet he won't share with us his brilliance unless we're done in proper academic debate form. I mean, I'm sorry, if I was in his position, I was spreading God's message, I wouldn't worry about proper academic debates. I would just go out and say, look, I've got the evidence, I can convince you, and here it is. And of course he won't do that. I wonder why he won't do it. Why don't we just say it? It's because Jason Burns is a fucking ignorant twat who has got nothing to offer at all, and deep down, he, I suspect, knows it as well, which is why he keeps running and running from any form of discussion or discourse, unless it's done in the way that he predetermines, and the reason why he is insisting on so many terms and clauses in any sort of agreement is because it'll give him the opportunity to opt out. Because I actually moderated the one debate that he has had, so far as I'm aware, and that was between him and Negation of P. He spent on his own account 35 hours researching for this debate. He couldn't even fill up a 10-minute opening in any coherent way. He mumbled for 5 minutes and basically said, that's all I've got to say now.
The front of your head is where you think, and the back of the head is where you, something stupid. That's the only thing I remember from that debate. That's the only thing. Remember?
What was that?
Remember, like, the front of your head's used for thinking, the back of your head's used for feeling, or something?
Yes.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing that came out of that debate.
What does that even mean?
He was quoting. Get this. He was quoting cutting-edge papers, and said,
"Holy
cutting-edge papers and research have shown that back of brains for one thing, front of brains for other, and middle of brains for something else." I'm sorry, Jason. It's no surprise we take you as a joke and a fool.
Should we take cutting edge literally?
And then I sent him a message asking him for his peer-reviewed papers and sources for this, and that's when he got really annoyed, because as I was asking him in a Skype conversation, I had another chat box open with Negation of P, because I'd said to Negation, I said, look, if I ask him, he will not be able to answer this question. So I had Negation in one box and what's his name, Jason in another. So I was asking Jason, what are your sources for this front of brain, back of brain, middle of brain, cutting edge technology? And he would answer. I would then cut and paste that into the conversation with Negation of P, so he could actually look it up whilst this conversation was going on. Apparently, Jason says that this was dishonest of me to do so, because he thought he was having a private conversation with me. Now, indeed, it was private, and I know Jason is probably watching, so Jason, get this into your head. It was a private conversation. All I did was explain what you had said to someone else so they could look it up. He has the audacity to record conversations and post them, as he has done within the last 24 hours. He's got the audacity to send me a PM through YouTube saying information in this message must be at absolutely confidential. You must not disclose it to anyone. And 2 days later, he makes a video in which he reads out the entirety of that message. Jason Burns is fucking insane. He's got no... Oh, I just...
He just has no...
He's,
Just sound like he
yeah,
has no
I don't know
standards.
what it is. I enjoy his presence on YouTube because at the end of a working day, I think there is nothing more hilarious and nothing more relaxing than sitting down and seeing how many videos he's posted that day, which I have to say the highest number he's ever posted in one day, so far as I'm aware, is 144.
I think I honestly seen 200.
What?
I think
Yeah,
I seen 200.
I kid you not. I counted it. He's probably deleted some or other. You can go back and kind of check.
How is that even possible?
How do you... Yeah, how
they're
do you
like
do
they're like
that?
3 minutes each. They're 3
To be
minutes
fair,
each.
they're not all his. He just uploads other videos, but 144 video uploads in a day.
God.
I mean, since talking to us last night, he posted about 6 or 7 in the space of an hour, and one, I can't even remember, Open Letter to DPR Jones by Jason Burns, Open Letter to Thunderfoot by Jason Burns, Open Letter to Aronra by Jason Burns, and then
So he
there
just
were
rants into a webcam.
he called us. This is the other great thing. He called us all Darwinian dodos and wasting our time. But he wants academic debate. He spends so much time criticizing and insulting all of us, yet he wants an academic debate, and that's the only way he will talk to us. The other thing I think is absolutely hilarious is something that is contemporaneous. Sorry, that's the wrong word. Why on earth I said- Something that is... my brain's gone. I'm having a senior moment. It'll come to me. In amongst these series of videos that you did recently was one about Cartesian theists, and he was defending Cartesian theists. If you're not aware of this, Cartesian has been caught out. Well, he was caught out some years ago, but it's only recently that Dark Matter and his channel Dark Antics has exposed just how horrific Cartesian's behaviour has been. And Jason made a video in which he not only defended Cartesian, he criticised all atheists for being judgmental, scumbag, nasty, horrible people. Now, hang on a second, Jason. Who's being judgmental here? He doesn't get it. He insults everyone that he wants to have an interrelationship or discourse with, and doesn't realise that he's actually the most foul and disgusting rude person. He said of Aaron that he is a coward, that he is a liar, that he is dishonest, that he, what else? Again, nasty, disgusting, and hideous person. But he wants an academic debate with him. How can you take someone like that serious? Jason should be seen for what he is, which is a joke.
On that note, we have another message.
But he's a joke.
On that note, we have another message.
Oh, what's this one say?
I'm not happy, Steve. It seems you are trying to put pressure on me. I will only agree to a live debate if I can trust the people who run it. I need to drill you and Sir Strife on some vital points before I commit. I'm not wanting for a relationship, just to make that clear.
Yeah, I mean, this is
The
another
way
tactic.
it keeps going on.
He said to me, when I posed a number of questions to him in a message I sent him a week or so ago, asking him about his educational qualifications, and in particular in relation to ERVs. There were 5 specific questions which came directly out of videos that he had made, and he refused to answer any of them unless I changed my ways and he was confident that I wanted to build bridges and be his chum. Secondly, we had to change our ways on the Magic Sandwich Show. And thirdly, Aronra had to agree to an academic debate. This is the sort of child that you're dealing with. He will not tell you anything unless he thinks you're going to be his chum and whatever. His response does not surprise me at all. It's the sort of thing I've been getting from him for months.
I think he's copying and pasting the old messages, honestly. Pretty
He
much.
might be.
Yeah,
Can I
pretty
just finish
much.
the message? Because the
I
bits
don't
after
think
that are
you've
the
got the
funniest
capacity
parts.
to work out how to cut and paste, but go on.
The way, okay, the last comment was, I need to drill you into stripe on some vital point before I commit. The way
I
you
thought he
keep
hated
pestering
fags.
me, the way you keep pestering me gives me grave doubts to your sincerity. I
Yeah.
think we shall leave it at that. If you would of, not have, but if you would of, just said, okay, Jay, didn't know his name was Jay, talk to you next week, you had an 80% chance of getting me on the show, but now you kept asking me, you have a 3% and I'm being very generous. Take care and have a great show, yours, Jay.
That's the Christian fuck off. I
It
love
is,
that.
really. No,
Oh,
it's a
I
dear.
don't know what
3%, it's a
I don't know what the
3%
problem
fuck
with
off.
Jay is, but
How do you calculate?
he's got an aversion to using the space bar. So one at the end of one sentence merges
Yeah.
perfectly.
It's
in
really
with-
weird.
I think he rests his cock on that while he's typing.
Just a quick
Don't
question. How do you calculate 80% and 3%? That's all I want to know.
ask him.
One
Well,
point is your... What?
you've got
Send him a
14%
message.
leeway then.
Ask him.
So, okay, so...
Drag
Alright,
him back into the call. Come on.
Fine, I'll do it. But
just to make this
he won't
clear, he
come in
said...
though.
Just to make this clear, he said, I need to drill you into strife on some vital point before I commit to a debate.
I wouldn't
As
want to be
such, I
drilled
asked
by
him,
him.
is there any clue you can... I wouldn't either, to be honest. He also wants us to commit. I'm
Wait.
fucking worried. But he also said,
Wait,
I
Steve.
respond asking...
Steve,
Okay.
he's here.
Oh, he's in... Is he in the call?
Mm-hmm.
Jason, we were just
Hello.
figure out
How are you?
how you went from 80% to 3%, and by what metric did you arrive at those figures?
You must love me, you lot. Why you keep phoning me up all the time, man? You must have better things to do.
We don't have enough Christian friends. It's sad.
Listen, I tell you what, I invite you all round to my house sometime. Come and stay with me for a couple of days.
No, because if I accepted that invitation, you would accuse me of stalking you.
Oh, well, you can all come down, man.
I live in America. I'm too far away.
Right.
Jason, you're invited onto the show next week. Are you gonna turn up?
Honestly, I'm not kidding. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
I'm away at the weekend, and I'm also away on a conference for 10 days as well. Coming up as well.
So what day works good
Is
for
it an
you?
academic conference?
No, it's have you heard of John MacArthur?
Joe MacArthur?
He's a
Oh,
famous-
is it the EV writer who talked about his experience finding God in the 80s or something? Or am I
No.
miles off? No, I think I'm McDonald, that's
He's
why.
one of the main leaders. He's one of the main leaders in America. Anyhow, his seminary have organised a seminary in the UK, in London. So I'm going to spend 10 days down attending this seminary for 10 days. So it's just busy. And to be honest, I don't feel at my best. So even though I've got a lot of preparation on this resurrection, I do like to prepare, and I get very nervous when it comes to having debates and things.
Well, what day works good for you?
I don't know.
Like 2 weeks in advance? Like,
I mean, obviously, with an academic debate, you want a decent amount of preparation.
well, yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I've been asking, because obviously I'm going to keep pestering you, and you keep saying no.
I'll think about it, and I'll get back to you, and I'll give you some dates and see whether those dates are suitable, and then we can have a chat about the details.
All right.
Would that be okay?
Just before you leave us, I know that you're a very busy person and you've got papers to write and so on and so forth. But I'm curious because it seems to me that you are a messenger of God, and one of your purposes is to spread that word. And yet you seem so reluctant to do it in any other format other than an academic debate. Why is that?
It's because, honestly, DP, I'm not just saying it, but you know that experience, I don't know if you were there actually when I did that Live Life show about 2 years ago. I came on.
I was moderating talking about the debate you had with negation of fee. Yes, of course I was
No,
there.
no, not that one, but before that, a few years ago, there was the first time he ever had contact with atheists was on Live Life show, and there was about three of them and me. And ever since then, I've been really kind of very cagey and wary of getting on side kind of blog shows.
But what's your obsession with academic debates?
Well, the thing is, there's two things with it, DP, and I really mean it. One is commitment to each other in terms of, okay, we're in democracies and we have different opinions, but having a debate like that is saying, oh, we disagree with each other, but at the end of the day, we still believe that each other has a right to democracy and we will respect each other. And an academic debate, for me, solidifies that.
When you say democracy, because there's different types of democracy, you mean, I'm assuming you mean the liberal democracy that we use with principles of tolerance rather than just majoritarian. Because obviously in academia there's many different strands of what democracy means. And if we had an academic debate based on principles of ancient Greek democracy, it's going to be a bit different because that's decided by lottery rather than strength of argument.
Well, for me, the foundational book for me is John Stuart Mill's book on liberty. That's the foundation.
Well, can I just say, John Stuart Mill, as an academic scholar, very much believes that those who are academic should have more rights than those who aren't. I mean, do you embrace that philosophy?
Say that again, Steve.
Well, okay. John Stuart Mill was, as an academic, believed that those who are in academia, those who are academic, should have more votes than those who don't.
No, I don't agree with that. I think that's a bit elitist. I agree with Paulo Freire about knowledge and the democratization of knowledge, Steve, on that one.
I'd recommend the Benthamite system then rather than a Millite. That's all I'm going to say on that issue.
Okay, mate. The point is just the commitment to respect each other within democracy, and I think that an academic debate is more a gentlemanly kind of thing rather than getting on a show where it can get a free-for-all and people. And secondly, I'm not very good if I'm in a situation like this and you throw a question, I'm not very good. But if it's an organised something, I can think better, and if it's more structured, I can think better and I can utilise my research a lot better. That's why it is DP.
I think that's fair enough, Jason. The only thing I would say, quid pro quo on that, is that if we come up with a topic, or maybe one or two topics we want to stick to, and the moderator keeps us within those, then it can't be a quote fest, because if you've prepared with a load of quotes, then you're putting the other person in an unfair situation because they cannot prepare for quotes they're not expecting. Do you see what I mean?
Do you mean do you mean quoting third parties, or do you mean quoting what the other person
quoting third
said?
parties and quoting references that the person doesn't have access to, all the rest of it. I mean, that stifles the debate because if you were to in a normal situation, if you were to come up to me and say, oh, have you heard about so and so, my answer would be no. I need to go away and read that up and read around it before I can come back and respond.
But the whole point is you should do your research. You should know the field, whatever you're debating, mate.
Well, the problem is the field is obviously, I mean, if you take, for example, historicity of Jesus Christ, you have people who've taken their entire life to study it, and none of us have done that here, of course.
Like, if I'd said debate in DP, I would go and watch as many videos as I can and find as much out about him and his writing, so that when I entered the debate, I would know as much as I can about what his sources are and everything.
Except, of course, that he might have changed his mind and thus have false information, or a lot more likely, you simply cannot watch all that information and ingest all of it in such a period of time. Generally, I mean, this is a good general principle we always use in academic debates. When you have a debate with someone, what you're doing is you're trying to promote edification, you're promoting learning. So if you just spew scholars, sources, quotes and statistics that don't make sense and don't explain them, when you're not making an argument, you're just saying words. I think that's a good
And also,
thing to
Jason,
say.
and me, I fully accept your general principle that in preparation for an academic debate, you ought to do the necessary research before entering into the academic debate. But your invitation to the show that we extended to you yesterday was to simply explain your views on homosexuality. These were the views that you've already publicly made, and by making them public, I presume that you are settled in your views about them, and that's all we're asking. It wasn't an academic debate. It was merely a discussion, and your reluctance to enter into just a normal civil discussion as opposed to an academic debate surprised me, because you didn't need to do the research that you would have to do for an academic debate in order just to express the views that you hold, and obviously hold, and explain why you hold them. You realise that you can have discussion without it being an academic debate. Yes?
Well, I assume that the discussion wasn't a shouting match.
I
It was an
appreciate
academic.
that, and I understand that, DP. But like I mentioned it to Ran. I said about going on the show, and he said, well, he said that they've got a show, Hanger, Bible Wingnut, and Ra, and him, and he said, well, when we do it, we make sure we have control of the button who we can take off and we can take on. We can take off and take on. And I think that's the issue about going on atheist shows, is you have the control, and there is, well, just, yeah, no, just
Well,
look at the
technically, that's the thing. Technically, it's under control of whoever owns the Skype call. I don't have to be the one controlling the Skype call to do this thing. I mean, Steve can control the Skype call, or you could control the Skype call. You know, all you got to do is call us. Then that's the thing. That it doesn't matter then.
it doesn't come across to me, says Drive, DP, and Steve, and bored to bits. There are, when people have the shows, people do have an agenda, and you're putting yourself at risk when you go on a show that you're in their agenda, and that is the case. When the Magic Sandwich Show does a show, they've got a particular agenda, and when you go on that show as a Christian, you're in that scenario, and you're at their mercy at that point, and so that's why I've always tried to insist on academic debate, because it takes the power away from shows in the control issue. That's what's important for me. So even though you've politely asked me to go on a show, DP, because it's an atheist situation where they're in control, I just feel uneasy about that. And I think even Rand and others would feel the same. Not all, but, you know.
Well, let me say this then. I mean, I've already gave you. I mean, the general form of academic debate that I used and had set up in academic debates before is using what's called MACE academic debating, which is where you use a simple format where both members of the academic, I don't know what you call them, the two debaters, that's the phrase, both make 10-minute speech, make a 7-minute speech each to begin with, followed by 7 minutes for rebuttals, which is essentially the same again, except you critique their case. And then finally, you have points from the floor where the academic debates open up to everyone being involved. So everyone in the academic debate, including the people listening in, as well as the people
Well, I
talking
always thought it was
and
longer.
discussing it.
I always thought it was about 15, 20 minutes each.
Yeah, well, usually that's more William Lane Craig's personal academic debate standard. In the majority, sorry, can I just finish? In the majority of this,
Wait, one at a time.
in the majority of that,
What
sorry, may I just finish this point? In the majority of academic debates that are usually done, for example, Oxford academic debates, you have 7 minutes to speak, because otherwise you get a long, rambling talk. I mean, if you look up the academic debates done between Dinesh D'Souza and Peter Singer, is a very good example of this. You can see how both of them have 7 minutes each to speak, and especially if you do academic debates in England generally, because this is obviously an England-centred show, it makes more sense. this is the best way of creating the academic debate.
I'd be very up for that. I'd be quite happy for 10 minutes. I think 10 minutes will be plenty for me to do my opening, and then 7 minutes for the rebuttal sounds fine.
Well, to me, you can't get your teeth into a subject with 7 minutes and 5 minutes.
Well, it's a 2-hour show, so.
I mean, if you organise yourself right, I mean, you could say 1,000
Wait,
words.
one at a time.
You couldn't debate whether the Teletubbies should be on or not with that time.
Well, let me just say this: 7 minutes is a lot longer than you think it is, and when you if you don't ramble, essentially, it's more than enough in any case. I mean, I'll just give examples here: the academic debate between.
I've lectured, and I've spoken to many groups, hundreds and hundreds of groups. So I've got a lot of experience in doing public speaking, and I could get something in 20 minutes that would normally take someone an hour to 2 hours. So there's no problem from my aspect. But 7 minutes, you couldn't do a radio show with 7 minutes.
Well, you can pull out that 5-side A4.
If I may, just very quickly, when it comes to academic debates, and I understand that you have this desire for not only academic debates, but formal, properly organised academic debates. In a way, the academic debate is kind of a fallacy, because during the course of the academic debate, you are restricted, whether it's 7 minutes, 10 minutes, or 20 minutes. The academic debate isn't really academic debate, is it? An academic debate, in your view, is structure, but in my view, that's not academic debate. An academic debate, to me, would be if you could have a much longer period where you could advance an argument, and the other person who is involved in the academic debate can then go away, consider those arguments, and come back. What you seem to consider as an academic debate is the sort of academic debate that takes place between William Lane Craig and other peoples, which does have a structure to it, and the time limits might not be particularly in accordance with your idea of academic debate, but I wouldn't describe that myself as an academic debate. That's just a debate, and this is why I kind of don't understand the difference between an academic debate and a debate. And your view of an academic debate, I don't think encompasses actually understanding the other person's argument. It is like most academic debates that are labelled academic debates are not really academic debates. They're just an opportunity to speak to the crowd that has come along purportedly to listen to an academic debate, but it's not. They're just sort of like supporting the people who might be involved in what is loosely labelled as an academic debate.
Okay, I think there's 3 points there, DP. I think the whole point for me is that you have time to do the research and the best scholarship, mate. That's the thing. You study. If you look at Kyle Butt when he was debating one or two atheists, he'd read. I think Dan Baker. He'd read everything about Dan Baker, and it's having that time to do the research and come with the best scholarship that you can. It's also about being a gentleman, and therefore you are listening to the scholarship that they're presenting, and then you're responding to that. So that's part of my understanding of academic debate. So I don't know.
Jason, just a second.
I find it funny, DP. Can you tell me why you find it funny, mate?
Jason, just a second. The point is, you're not talking. I'm not asking you to, or nobody's asking you. I'm being pulled into this to debate, and you're going to be way ahead of me on the detail, and I'm going to be the one playing catch up. It's not as if you're being asked to present 20 minutes on or 10 minutes on quantum theory. This is a subject that you're already working on academic papers on it. So really all you need to do is think about what is there, 4 or 5 strong defences of your position, and then build them up to give them a side of A4 each. Then you've got 5 sides of A4.
I might consider it, but when you've got DP there giggling his head off, I don't know why he's giggling his head off.
I'm sorry, Jason. I apologise. I'm not laughing at you. I'm having another conversation. I'm trying to multitask, and the person.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault.
Communicating with keeps on making me giggle, but it's got nothing to do with you, Jason. Don't worry.
No.
Oh, it seems a
Sorry,
bit.
Steve. Sorry, I think I interrupted. I interrupted you, but I thought Steve had something to say.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, generally within academic debates themselves, I mean, obvious examples like British parliamentary is the most commonly used, or MACE, academic debates like these generally have a 7-minute time period, and public policy academia uses 7-minute speeches, so 6-minute speeches in public policy. So public policy, public speaking, public policy itself is an academic type of debate which has 8-minute speeches and cross references and is very confusing. But with these types of debates which we use, these academic debates essentially revolve around the idea that people in an academic position can be concise and don't, and even though they have, obviously that's why their academics have so many different and so many arguments, so many counter arguments to use. In an academic debate, the point is you're portraying your knowledge onto the audience. You're not essentially lecturing, as I'm sure you've done before. It's a different format. I mean, compared to lecturing and academic debating, the academic debating is more of a dialogue. I think you've essentially hit on that when you were talking about how in an academic debate the major principle is being a liberal democracy.
I'd agree. But I think the other key thing is because we are in this forum, we do need to, as quickly as possible, to turn it over into a mass debate, because it's the academic debate is fine for the two of us, but there's a mass of people out there and they want a mass debate. Even if there's only 5 or 6 of us on the call, there's a lot more in the chatters. I mean, you can see them all up there, and I'm sure they would all prefer a mass debate than an academic debate.
So I don't know why you're phoning me up, guys. I mean, all you got to do is just tell me your format, tell me the issue and whatever.
See,
And
I think
All
Steve
right.
addressed to that point.
Yeah, let me just
can I just say, I've been
so, yeah,
phoned
go ahead.
4 times now. You know, I mean, 4 times you phone me, and 4 times you kind of try and put pressure on me. Normally, if you're as cultured as you regard yourselves, the best thing to do is DP or someone send me an email or some information about what they'd like to do, and then I get back to them and we can have a discussion. But ringing me 4 times, it seems as if you're pressurising me. There's a part of me thinks you're just winding me up, you're taking the mick. So I don't know, So if you want me to play ball, you've got to deal with me gentlemanly in a proper way.
All right.
Otherwise, it's no point. You know,
Because
I've studied theology at 10 years, and if you want someone to bring some scholarship in the area of the resurrection of Christ, I'm willing to do that, but you need to do it in a proper way.
all right. Can I
So
just say,
contact me, give me the details, contacts, and I'll tell you whether I've got dates, and I'll send information to DP or to one of you, and we can
right,
take it further. But I feel a bit pressurised, and I don't know whether I'm being taken the mick.
all right. Can I just say this then? Um, because obviously we want it to work not just in such a way we're both happy with, but in the best format, and obviously getting everyone's opinion on this is the best way of doing such a thing. I'll just say out loud the part of the Skype message I gave to you, which addresses this issue of how to do it, which would be 7-minute opening speeches, followed by 7-minute rebuttals, followed by points on the floor, and finally a 5-minute concluding speech.
Mm.
This generally lasts in total an hour because both sides are 7 minutes to speak each, and it allows, in my experience, all the major arguments to be brought across and discussed, while at the same time not becoming incredibly long, dry, and dull.
Mm.
Does that
sound
leave enough
reasonable?
time for all the chatters to come in for a mass debate?
Well, obviously, after the academic debate's over, we want a mass
Well,
debate, mass discussion on the issue at hand.
well, how long does an academic debate last usually?
Well, most formats, which is a 7-minute, 7-minute, 5-minute
Well, in total, grand
academia,
total.
it usually lasts, let me think about this for a second, 10, 20, 40, about an hour. So
Okay, so
when the thing is over,
that gives us plenty of time for questions. And if we do an hour academic debate and then we do a question and answer session that could last an hour,
yeah,
if
I
that's
mean,
okay.
there's a Q&A, and there's even a Q&A involved in the academic part of the debate where people either answer questions from the other debater or points are made from the floor, which means the audience.
Okay.
Of course, the only really contentious issue um, is that in the 5 minute conclusion, one shouldn't bring up new arguments. That's really the only thing, because obviously you can't rebut otherwise.
And Jason, I have to say, I hope you're still with us. I trust that you don't feel as if you're being threatened at the moment. You're in pleasant company, are you not?
It is pleasant talking to you. It was pleasant talking to Thunderfoot last night. But one feels a bit pressurised in terms of I've had 4 Skype phone calls since yesterday.
Jason, I apologise if you don't want people to phone you. I don't want to sound trite about this, but there's a simple solution. Don't answer the phone. If you'd like us all to remove you from our contact list on Skype, I'm sure we'd all agree that we'd be happy to do that if you feel uncomfortable by us messaging you or calling you.
Well, I don't feel uncomfortable. I do 3 times, 4 times in a day and a half.
That your message has been taken on board, and I'm sure that we will not do that again.
I only phone my mum once a week, so
That's okay. I understand. That's fine. Your message has been taken on board, and I'm sure that none of us will do that again.
Okay, man.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you.
All right. So I don't know
Thank
what
you
you
for
want to
coming
do
on.
now. Pardon?
Thank you for coming on. We might as well say this now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think anyone else has any other questions.
Okay.
So until a fortnight time,
Well,
or longer,
I'll let
obviously.
I'll let you know. I'll think about what you've said, and I'll let you know in the future. I'll either send something to you, Steve, or maybe you, DP.
Okay.
Okay,
Always
thank
well.
you.
It's
All
always,
right.
despite what you might think to the contrary, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Jason.
Yeah.
Please don't stop or close your YouTube channel. Stop making your videos. They're very entertaining, even though you do have a difficult time.
All right, mate. Take care.
You too. God bless you.
You too. See you, Steve. Bye now. See you, Stripe.
See ya.
Goodbye.
See you, mate.
Bye, Jason.
Great.
This after show.
DPR, you are an
How long is
absolute...
the after show going on for?
It can actually go on. I don't know, maybe 2 hours tops, and it's only been like it's only
Can I just
been.
say, you have some amazing skills.
Who are you
How did
talking
you
to?
do it 22 times in the same...
Don't go there at the moment.
Oh,
Fine.
Do you want me to
all
end the
right, we'll
show
wait.
soon? Because if
Well, it's just I am going to go to bed fairly soon, but hey, you can carry on the show without me.
well, yeah, I don't know. Does anyone in the audience in the chat have any questions? Because tomorrow, make sure to catch the if you're an American or you're a British person who is a night owl, pretty much, to catch the Lion Go Show U.S. edition, and tomorrow at it would be midnight British Standard Time, and it would be 7 p.m. Eastern.
And just to make clear, it's not a recording. Yes, we are here, and we are watching you. Crimson Chaos.
So please leave a message after the tone.
Also known as Gareth. Now, if your name is Gareth, this basically means the slim chance that your name is Gareth basically would scare the shit out of you now. Is your name Gareth?
What's Galif?
Gareth, a name.
No.
Alright. No, the name of Crimson Cat. Because if his name is Gareth, because if I'm right, that is some awesome psychic skills. I think that much has to be said. That's it. Who's Sean Cavill?
Who?
Sean. I'm guessing it's Sean rather than Sheen or
Some
Cian.
guy that's gonna be. Hey, Trolling with Logic. Why don't you just come on here and announce it?
Oh, that's their show.
Yeah. And now, and finally, you're actually
Bastards.
saying what time Eastern. That's the first. I usually have to do
No.
the math.
I'm going to do UK.
Yeah.
Do-
Oh crap! We just lost Steve. What would you give it? What would you give it, Crimson? How many stars out of 10? Thumbs up if you like the show. Thumbs down if you didn't.
If you thumbs down, we're going to ignore your count.
Well, if you do thumbs down, you're going to hell.
Yeah. We did an atheist hell to guilt trip people.
Yeah. Thumbs down. We know you're going to hell, DPR. We all know.
Just a little part of me dies inside every time you thumbs down.
That frog is going to stalk you, I think. That frog that Bauds to Bits has. You'll find it at your window one night with a knife. That's what will happen. He's like Kermit the Frog, except he's like Chucky.
Chucky the Frog.
Yeah, Chucky and Kermit the Frog combined equal, I don't know, Bauds to Bits frog. Oh, you're not a loser, Crimson.
How about an 8? Come on.
Oh, wait, you're a loser because you're an atheist. I'm sorry. If you are an atheist. I'm kidding.
Have we wound down? I think.
I don't know. We're talking to Crimson, and we're number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're number 9 in the thing.
We did animal sex. When did we do animal sex? Oh, we did that on
We did last night. When did you do it?
Sandwich, didn't we?
Yes, and I know that he's not with us, so it's perhaps unfortunate to discuss Jason's attitudes towards animal sex. But he was obviously watching and made a video about it. But what I found interesting was he didn't actually say anything other than, "You're disgusting." And that was it. The issue, and I think it is an interesting issue, is why is it that all of us have a disgust for sex with animals? Well, not everyone, because obviously some people enjoy it and indulge in it. But why is it that we think it's morally wrong? I think in a broad context, it goes down to the interesting question, where do we get our morality from? And yet, on this occasion, the Bible does give us some guidance about having sex with animals. But seeing as I don't really recognize the authority behind the Bible, therefore I don't recognize the Bible as being authoritative on morals. And we've already discussed earlier on about how the Bible contains some quite horrific moral values that no one in the modern age really follows. Or if they do, we find them socially disgusting. Where do we get our moral values from, and why is it that the majority abhor sex with animals? And I think that is an interesting question, and one that ought to be discussed. Jason, unfortunately, seem to take the approach, well, I know it's wrong because it says it in the Bible, and you atheists obviously have no problem with having sex with pigs. Now, that's not what we said, Jason, if you actually listen to what was said. What we were arguing about, what we were discussing is why is it, do we think that sex with animals is wrong, and why also we have perhaps no problem in standing and crushing a fly or bee under our heel, whereas we wouldn't do the same to perhaps a chicken and certainly not a pig or a dog or a pet. Those are issues I think are to a degree interesting to discuss. But please, Jason, if you are going to comment on the show, please don't misrepresent what we said.
No, I think there is. I think there's quite likely evolutionary or I don't know what you call them, genetic memory imperatives. The same reason that we recoil from snakes and certain creepy crawlies. I mean, there's obviously survival instinct in there in some way, and the same reason that typically, pardon me, a heterosexual male and a heterosexual female will find the opposite sex attractive. There's obvious genetic, reasons for that. if our main reason here is to procreate, then it's handy if we mainly want to do that with somebody that we can produce offspring with. And I've never met a goat I fancy.
Maybe you didn't find the right lamb.
That's what I say, yet. I should have answered yet, shouldn't I?
Sorry, are you basically saying that you've made a conscious decision to be a faggot? Is that what you're saying?
A goat. No, I'm saying that I think that, if we take what we call a normal male, then a normal male, the evolutionary and genetic imperative surely would be to find a mate that you can procreate with. Now, the fact that our genetics are not perfect and they're not, and so, not all males are heterosexual, not all females are heterosexual, doesn't I think alter the basic fact that, if we were all gay, then we'd die out, which wouldn't be a very good evolutionarily. And as I said before, I think there might be very good reasons why a certain percentage of any population is homosexual. I can see as a very positive things for the group in that. So.
So I was deliberately using those provocative, pejorative.
Oh, I know.
But deep down, that is a message you get from a lot of the religious, and that's why I use them to highlight just how disgusting their views are. And they try and package it in lovely, softly, lovely sort of like language. Well, we don't hate the sinner, we just hate the sin.
Well, I nearly put something on a video I did this morning, but it got a bit long because it was just my new intro video for my channel. But I came up against this guy called Kazimierz Wyszynski. He's Polish, so it's a great Scrabble hand. But round about the end of the 17th century, he was a what do you call it? One of the Catholic Gestapo. What were they called? I can't remember what they're called now. Anyway, but he apparently wrote a book, and it was a devil's advocate book, but the book was arguing against the existence of God. Now, he said that he was going to write the book in two parts. He was going to write the argument against God, and then he was going to write the argument for God. But a priest warned him against it, so he didn't. He then got in trouble with a local parishioner who managed to get hold of this book and handed him in. So after a kangaroo court, he had his tongue torn out with some hot tongs, his hands roasted over a fire because it was his hands that had written these words, "There is no God," and then was beheaded and thrown on the fire. And what he actually said was, "There is no God," and put an argument against it. And apparently his argument was he was only playing devil's advocate anyway. That's the joy of...
Pink Unicorns joined us. I don't think you were actually here at the very beginning of the original show, but I was commenting upon how disgraceful it is that in the 21st century there are still countries where they think it is appropriate to actually stone to death someone because of their sexuality, and the way in which man has a capacity to inflict such inhumane treatment upon one of his fellows is something that I have never ever understood, and I find utterly disgusting. And the only explanation that I'm able to find is that in religious indoctrination manages to, let's quote Hitchens, poison everything and make decent people do the most horrific acts. Yes, there are bad people in the world, and if convicted by due process, should receive some sort of punishment. Incarceration, I think, is suitable punishment. I certainly have never been in favour of the death penalty, for example, but do it in a humane and dignified manner. And these people don't. And this is what I find somewhat strange, and I'm sorry to keep on going back to him, but Jason thinks that I'm aggressive and belligerent, I would do whatever I could to ensure his safety, his ability to speak whatever he wants to, however much I may disagree with it. And I would also, have no problem in having, not necessarily an academic debate, but a discussion with him in which views can be expressed in very forceful ways. And I know some people say that I am somewhat forceful, but that's where it ends. The idea of using aggression to enforce my views is utterly abhorrent, and he doesn't seem, I don't know, I may be being somewhat unfair on him, but he doesn't seem to grasp this, that you can actually have a debate, a discussion, and exchange, a discourse with someone in which you do speak your mind strongly, but that doesn't mean you have any desire for ill upon the person that you're talking to. And I don't understand it, and yet he has the capacity to, come out with all sorts of outrageous judgments, which are obviously all based on his interpretation of his particular, in inverted commas, good book. I just think the world would be a better place if we could drop this sort of bigotry that is instilled in some by virtue of religion.
But the point is that in reality, you and I don't do a lot about it because we've got a democratic government here that supports these countries and allows them to continue. And if the Western, if Europe, for instance, with its great European Parliament, actually said enough's enough, drew a line in the sand and said we're not going to trade. Not only we're not going to trade with these countries, we're not going to trade with countries who trade with these countries. Then things would change. But as long as we tacitly support them, it'll carry on. I mean, the Bangladesh thing, similar at the moment. Everyone, oh, terrible. Yes, it is terrible. 1,000 people died. I mean, that's almost Twin Towers type death. And this is in one garment factory in Bangladesh. And people would have been watching that on the TV and going, oh, isn't that terrible? And then going down Tesco's to buy a T-shirt for £1 and not connecting the two.
I think the point, and rightly made, is that if people could identify where the products they were buying came from and under what circumstances, I think that is definitely something that may assist. But just dealing with international law and international relationships as a whole, and this is something that came up to a degree with the conversation that Gary raised on the last Magic Sandwich show. He was outraged that someone that he was familiar with was imprisoned in in the Philippines. I can't remember exactly where. And the question that I asked him, and I would ask you as well, do you think that it is acceptable that a state, recognized state, should be able to make its own laws and enforce those laws?
A recognized state to enforce their own laws?
Yeah, to make their laws. Whether you disagree with the laws or not, do you think that states should have sovereignty?
It's a very good question,
Well,
isn't it?
isn't that what a state is by definition?
We know, but if you take the issue of human rights, which I'm guessing is where we're going, if there are basic human rights, then I mean, the United Nations should have some balls. If the United Nations had balls, then things like that would be addressed.
The United Nations is impotent, and the reason it is impotent is because by the very statute that an agreement that set up, it restricted its powers, and any form of international law is restricted insofar. Sorry, what I mean by that is it requires the participation of willing participation of states, and if that participation is not offered, then the whole thing breaks down. And one of the criticisms that could be made, and certainly can be made, is America's attitude towards international law is absolutely appalling. it wants to be the police force of the world, but it won't actually allow itself to be judged by the same laws that it tries to impose on others. And this is one of the reasons why I think that there is a limitation to how far international diplomacy can go. Now, I wasn't actually going anywhere apart from Syria, for example. Now, what is going on in Syria at the moment is appalling. Why is no country stepping in? What do you think the reason is?
Well, I personally think the reason is that Syria is Russia's only serious naval base in the Mediterranean, and therefore that's where the major political drive is coming from, personally.
Right. So if the United Nations wanted to do anything, Russia being one of the permanent members could veto any action that the United Nations may want to take. So
yeah, and I think
I totally agree with that. There's also another aspect of international law, which is that you don't interfere with a country that is going through a civil war, because, I mean, you can understand the reasons why, but you allow it self-determination, which I have to say I think is the only acceptable thing to do, because otherwise you are seeking to determine your own views on a country.
Well,
And it surely
I agree. I agree. It is
to determine its own self-determination.
you're allowing it to go its own path instead of allowing another nation to oversee its path. Kind of like, I guess, I guess European powers and I think America did to China long ago, once upon a time.
well, we did. The British did it. The East India Company did it to
Yes,
China.
yes.
But I mean that was a long time ago, and that's never a good thing to hark back at. I think the issue is that nowadays, when and it's not an easy issue, but when a human rights issue occurs in a country like Syria at the moment, then the international community says something should be done. The ordinary people say something should be done, because regardless of the sovereignty, I mean, what is the difference between Syria and Libya?
I think the answer is obvious.
Yeah.
First, well, it's maybe slightly more nuanced than, Libya provided oil. It's slightly nuanced in that Libya didn't have either Russia or China supporting it in the United Nations, so any action that was taken against it was done with UN approval. No one was really that bothered about protecting Gaddafi.
No, I mean, their biggest contributor, I think, was Italy, and Italy was broke, so Italy would go along with what France, Germany, and England said.
Italy is a permanent member of the UN, and it's not even on the Security Council at the moment, or I don't think it was then. So Italy is almost irrelevant.
Yeah, but it was the biggest. It was the biggest historic influence in Libya.
Oh, historic influence. I apologise. I misunderstood what you're saying.
But no, but yeah, there is a problem. But I think there is a fundamental issue, which is core human rights. And
No, but hang on. Okay, I accept that. I'm sorry. I meant to go back to that point. There are certain human rights issues that I think are very, very important. I agree with you in that regard. And I think where that takes us is, how do you deal with a country that doesn't have the same human rights as we think are important? And let's not forget that it is to a degree subjective what we think is important. And going back to the beginning of this show, the title of the show was about homosexuality. So let's say we're dealing with a country that has appalling human rights records against.
You mean like Uganda?
Well, you could take that issue, that country. You could also take, for example, Pakistan. Now, and many others, I'm sure. Now, what is the best way to deal with it? Is isolating that country going to change anything? And I will obviously draw an analogy with North Korea. The amount of sanctions that are in place in relation to North Korea are more than any other country in the world, but it still carries on its own little path. And its human rights record remains appalling. So just excommunicating that country and imposing sanctions is not necessarily a way of seeking to build up their human rights record, or human rights. So what is the best way? A combination of diplomacy, persuasion, and what? Yes, it sounds wonderful at first blush. Yeah, well, we'll have nothing to do with this country unless they change. But I think it's unrealistic, isn't it?
Why?
Oh yes, yeah, I agree. It's not realpolitik, but there is the situation where you can much more emphasis should be put on it. It you know it should be risen. It should come to the fore all the time. I mean, China has moved a long way, and it's moved a long way because it knows it's being watched. North Korea, I don't really understand, because North Korea only exists because of China, and I don't know what China gets out of that really, apart from maybe it thinks of it as its little bit of empire. I've no idea. Because if China closed its border, North Korea would fold. I mean, there'd come a point where whoever hadn't starved to death would rise up.
It owed its existence to Russia, because at the time the American forces were working their way up through Korea, there was an attempt to stop them through the United Nations, and Russia had vetoed the United Nations and therefore couldn't boycott. Sorry, had boycotted the United Nations and therefore couldn't veto the invasion of Korea. And it was only after they decided that, oh yeah, hang on a second, let's get back to the negotiating table or whatever, that's when the battle lines were drawn, literally drawn.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the Korean War is a war anybody should read.
I mean, like, I get what you mean by, like, like, we're like, screw this country and leave it alone, yet then we're like, well, what about the people in this country? Even though we hate the country, like North Korea, USA doesn't like North Korea, yet you have a thing against, you don't have a thing against the people, like, kind of like the military. Like, you don't have a thing against the people of the country, do you? When you attack them, right?
No, but the problem is that we still fight these people, these leaders of these countries.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about
they'll
the
still
leaders.
come to the White House, and and that's the point. They're fated, and they're treated as if we'll just ignore everything you do. Where I'm sure there are other ways to do it. Yeah, we can carry on trading with them, but we can say, well, trade is dependent on this and dependent on this, dependent on the Red Crescent or the Red Cross being in there monitoring things or something like that. And yes, it is difficult because you've got the USA, which still has the death penalty, which, lots of, well, I think the whole of Western Europe thinks is deplorable. And so, and that's where the real politic comes in, because when you're looking at somewhere like the United Nations, anyone who starts, if any country sees another country's sovereignty being squashed down a little bit, they're instantly thinking about, well, we may be next. And that's where the vetoes come in all the time.
It's not actually so much the death penalty that I have an objection with in relation to America, because I think it's, to a degree, it's state by state. What I have an attitude or an issue with is their attitude towards international justice as a whole. America has this arrogant and belligerent attitude that we know best and no one's going to tell us what to do. This is why they have refused to sign up to things such as the International Criminal Court, because they don't want their citizens being judged by an international court. And at the same time, they are running things like Guantanamo Bay. How can they claim to be the moral guardians of the world, which is effectively what they do, and at the same time treat people in the way that they are doing? It is hypocrisy, and it's something that could lead to the downfall of the International Criminal Court, because if America doesn't support it, there are knock-on consequences as a result. And I think that's a shame. But I don't want to get too far into America and whatever. But well, I say I didn't, but I'll say one last thing. It does have a very arrogant attitude about itself.
Well, it is difficult because I mean America has the last empire really, but their empire is more of a commercial empire backed up with force, where they have these stations all around the world. I mean, our empire collapsed because we went broke, and after the Second World War, everybody wanted some independence. But I don't know, America, I think, is sort of needing to find a new way at the moment. And I don't know how that will go with it, especially as it sees its economic power wane further and further. And I think it's not just that, it's Western Europe as well. Our economic position in the world is going to drop and drop because we're still pursuing this capitalism. I mean, here we are, we're now 6 years from an economic collapse, and our solution to it is to put more money on the credit cards all around Europe and America.
As an American, you want me to give my possible explanation why America is like this? Possibly?
Yes, I'd
Yeah.
love you to.
Give me a second. Can you give me a few minutes?
Or you've got to go and do some academic research.
I didn't even know my phone was dead.
Looks
I'm
like we're
sorry.
on our own,
Who's got-
Portabits.
Can you give me a
Pardon?
few minutes?
I say it looks like we're on our own, and he's gone off.
Yeah, I know it is a difficult one. I agree. The real politic, and as you get older, I'm sure you sort of the same as me. When you're young, you're quite reactionary, and you see things and you think, ugh. And as you get older, you do become more conservative with a little c, because you realise that you'll be batting your head against a wall on quite a lot of things, and you also have the perspective of the Cold War. The first time Afghanistan was an issue with the Russians. I mean, I grew up during Vietnam. I had an uncle who was in Korea, so I'd read all about Korea and I understood some of the politics there. I went to war myself, and so I sort of came out of that and understood the politics of that.
Well,
And I think,
oh, good.
oh yeah, go on.
No, go ahead. Let you finish your thing, then I'll go with mine.
No, I've finished. I'll just carry on all night.
But, I think what happens with age perhaps is also this. You have more time and perhaps more energy when you're younger to argue over causes. But I think perhaps what happens with age is that you realise that your energies can be directed in a more constructive way, as opposed to just simply engaging in a march, for example.
Yeah.
I was going to say the possible reason I would think America acts like it has an empire was, in a sense, America thinks there's an enemy still there, kind of like the Russians were the enemy that it was pretty much gearing up to do in the 80s and the 70s and stuff, because the budget of American military then was pretty much at its height, right?
Yeah.
And pretty much since then, it seems like to me America has no it needs an enemy in a sense. It needs a bad cop kind of thing, a bad cop. It needs something to focus on, and these small affairs are something they could focus on without seemingly making it a waste, I guess, in my opinion.
I think the other thing is American politicians have never had to pay for their mistakes. I mean, Nixon,
Waterloo?
God, Nixon should have been burnt at the stake for what he did. I mean,
You mean Waterloo?
no,
Watergate.
no,
Watergate.
no, before Watergate, no. When the election was on in '69, was it '69? And North
Nixon.
North and South Vietnam were in Paris, ready to sign a peace agreement. And my understanding of it, and it's a long time since I read about it, is that basically Kissinger put the kibosh on it. He killed it for Nixon, because Nixon promised South Vietnam that he would really ramp everything up militarily, and South Vietnam would win if they let Nixon come in. So Nixon won the election, and a few more hundreds of thousands of Americans died, and 5 years later they signed the same peace agreement as they would have done anyway.
Wasn't Nixon the one that got America out of Vietnam?
Yeah, eventually, but that was because that was purely because the public got fed up of seeing the body bags come home.
And
The public turned
also,
against it.
I think also.
Who sent America? Who sent America into Vietnam?
Well, was it Kennedy or Johnson? It might have been JFK Expeditionary Force, but I mean, because it's but originally it was very meant to be a couple of hundred men.
Oh God, I forgot the whole thing. I just remember that there was this famous thing on, like, I think it was also because that's now the military, the media has to be a little bit controlled by the military, because I think there was a picture, if I remember correctly, um, there was a footage of a little boy getting shot, I think it was, which made the public in America say no more war, pretty much. I forget what it was.
Well, the My Lai massacre didn't do any
Well, that's
good for the PR either, did it?
Well, that too. I'm just saying, like now the military only shows, like, oh, when we have victories and stuff, mostly.
But if you want to understand what it was like for the people on the ground, then We Were Soldiers Once and Young is just an exceptional book. It was the one made into a film with him who hates the Jews now, who used to be very popular. What was his name?
He Who Hates the Jews, is that the book's name?
Yeah, painted his face blue. What was his name? Mel Gibson. He starred in
Oh,
the film.
Braveheart.
He starred in the film We Were Soldiers Once and Young, but the book We Were Soldiers Once and Young, written by the actual people, is an exceptional book, and it's a story of it's the first ever real contact between Americans and the Vietnamese. They were sent in, the American airborne was sent in to make contact with the Vietnamese, and they thought that was what they were going to do. What they didn't realise was they'd landed right by the Viet Cong headquarters in South Vietnam. So they were basically these young grunts with no military experience or no live experience, spent about the next 5 or 7 days under constant fire from hordes of North Vietnamese. It's a very, very good book if you want to get a feeling for what it was like.
You want to end the show, DPR and Board to Bits, with final points? Since pretty much we're running out of steam. Board to Bits, go first. Board? Maybe it's time to end the show. How about we have final remarks from Board to Bits and DPR?
It's been great. Of all the shows I've been on, this was one of them. Thanks for watching.
I would endorse and echo the comments made by my learned friend Bits. No, it's been fun. I think it's a little bit of a shame, as I said before, that we couldn't get a theist on to explain the religious reasons for bigotry. But there we go. Maybe
Okay.
Jason can say some in a few weeks' time.
Well, thank you for watching, and hope to see you tomorrow on the Line Go show. If, well, you're able to. For the U.S. version, that's at 7 p.m. Eastern or 12 p.m. British Standard. Signing out. 5.